Thanks, everybody, for coming. I just want to say a couple things ahead of time. Gentleman over there, Dexter Mengel, drum roll, please. Please acknowledge yourself. We owe to Dex this picture of the event in 1918 that was taken, that hangs in his man cave. And in honor of this, he brought it here to share with us tonight. So afterwards, can you hear me now, Keith? Am I okay? Oh, I'm just saying some preliminary words. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Please don't give me electric shock again. Sorry. Yeah.
Welcome. How is everybody this evening? Thank you for coming out tonight. Brian is a good friend of the Berks History Center. Usually every fall and every spring, he offers an evening event to the Berks History Center. In addition to that, though, he's a very popular speaker for the Berks History Center. He's one of our Berks History Center ambassadors. And I think probably he's up to about 40 a year. He goes out to assisted living facilities, senior groups, churches, civic organizations. And the beautiful thing he does is he donates the honorariums to the Berks History Center. Yeah, he really does. He earns a lot of money for us. I think he's brilliant in that he works for the he writes for the Historical Review. And he gets a bigger payback because he turns those articles into PowerPoint presentations. And then he gets to use all those pictures that he dug up and all the information that he got that doesn't usually make it into the final article for the review because there's space limitations. So welcome to the Berks History Center. And without any other comments from me, we're going to turn things over to Brian. Welcome.
Thanks, Vicki. Didn't mean to be on the over the raft. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. It's appreciated. Thanks for your support of the History Center. And so no ado here. The babe, Shoeless Joe The Rajah, that's Rogers Hornsby, and a number of other major leaguers all played a game here September 29th, 1918. And what we're going to talk about is the game. You know, the game's the thing. Isn't that what Shakespeare said? What's the play's the thing. But anyway, talk about the game, but we're going to talk about what led up to it and why all these baseball players from the regular baseball leagues were all playing in Reading on September 29th for defense contractor teams. What also led the Reading Steelies, they were the one team, and the Harlan Shipbuilders were the other, two contractors. What led up to them over that summer of 1918 as well? So, in any event, let me see if I forgot anything. And we'll talk about some tensions that were created because the games were played on Sunday. And Pennsylvania had blue laws. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. There we go. All right. So who was in the game? Reading Steel Castings was a subsidiary of Bethlehem Steel, which had its own league, and Reading Steel Castings had a team of its own that wasn't in the main league. Harlan Shipbuilders was also a subsidiary of Bethlehem Steel. They were down in Delaware, Wilmington, and this was the championship team of the Shipbuilder Defense Contractor League that came to Reading to play that day against the Reading Steelies. Okay. Playing in the game that day for the Steelies was Babe Ruth, 24 years old, playing for the Boston Red Sox. Yes, you heard that right. the Boston Red Sox, his early part of his career, was in his 5th year of Major League Baseball. He had won 13 games that year for the Red Sox. He was instrumental in their winning the pennant, nudging out those Cleveland Indians, and 2.5 games. And also, he was instrumental in their winning the World Series against those stinking Cubs. And so, in any event, so they had 24-year-old Babe Ruth pitching. He had not only won 13 games, he hit 11 home runs and tied, you guessed it, from the Philadelphia A's. From the Philadelphia A's did he tie that year for the home run lead? Billy Walker. Yeah, Jimmy Fox was still in high school, I think, at this point. Anyway, but nice try. Yeah, you'll get a consolation prize. Anyway, so you had Tilly Walker, and it was the first of 11 home run titles. It's ironic, 11 home runs, that the Babe would win over the course of his career. He was described as in the Eagle as not only the best left-handed pitcher, but the best left-handed hitter in baseball already, even though he was a pitcher. And he was described as the magnet that drew all the fans that day to the game. So another star quality player was Joe Jackson from the Chicago White Sox, known as Shoeless Joe, one of the great nicknames of baseball history, who's not in the Hall of Fame for some bad judgment that he made later on. He was a left-handed hitter. He was instrumental in the White Sox winning the championship in 1970. He was an outfielder, and anyway, he would lead this team. He led the Steelies in all offensive categories over that short season for the Defense Contractor League, and he became a fan favorite in Reading. He only played on Sundays because he also played for the Harlan team. A lot of these guys played for both those teams, but sometimes they would play for Harlan on Saturday, and then they would play in Reading on Sunday. And we'll talk about that arrangement. And so that now you had Shoeless Joe Jackson playing. Rogers Hornsby sometimes played for the Reading team, but was playing shortstop for the Harlan team that day. He was young, 4th season in baseball. He was one of the top shortstops in the National League, had been 4th in the home run totals in the National League that year. And so in any event, 2 weeks earlier, he had a home run in a game for the Harlan team. So it was the complications of this wartime baseball thing. So just suck it in and enjoy the night of that game, and don't try to get too complicated about it. Also pitching was a famous teammate of notoriously famous, sadly, of Shoeless Joe. Lefty Williams was pitching for the that day for the Steelies. He also was on the White Sox, and he became a member of the Black Sox because he was one of the 8 members of the White Sox that threw the World Series in 1919. But Lefty Williams was a very good pitcher, but he was notorious for the rest of his life for the wrong reasons. But he was a 17-game winner in 1919 and a 13-game winner in 1917. So there was 11 other players, and these will all be on the quiz on Wednesday. So, all right, I want you to have these. But Lee Dressen played for the Tigers, hit a 170 lifetime average. So he was happy to be playing in this Defense Contractor League. Del Pratt played for the Yankees. Gus Getz played for the Pirates and the Indians. Bird Lynn, talking about him later, was a catcher for the White Sox. George Dumont was a pitcher for the Senators, who pitched for both teams. And that day, he happened to be pitching for the Harlan team. How about that? So, in any event, and Bob Steele was an outfielder for the Harlan team as well, and he was Canadian. That's a distinctive thing. All right. Powers Park was packed, and Dex has shared us his picture that hangs in his man cave with some interesting. He did this himself, the baseball research. How many years ago did you do that, Dex? Too many. Okay, it's too many years. All right, but I gave it to the magic of AI, and that's not Allen Iverson, and that is a much more discernible picture than that. That versus that over there to the right. Sorry, the folks at home can't see, but anyway, you'll see it later. In any event, the photo ball game did not come out properly. Underneath it said, which 15,000 people attended. So, if you read the Reading Times story on September 30th, they said 10,000 people at least attended this game. If you read the Eagle, it said 12,000 people. And at the bottom of the picture there, it says 15,000 people. So it was packed. So it just depended on who you believed. The phrase, it harkened back to the days of 1907 when the Reading Atlantics crammed Lowers Park, was used by the newspapers every stinking week. But anyway, it was just like 1907. And that's the Reading Atlantics pennant there from 1907, harkening back. But people, the grandstands were packed. People lined up along the foul lines behind ropes that theoretically held them back. People sat on the roof of the grandstands. When we go back a little bit, you can't see them in this one, but they were on the roof of the grandstands. They were on telegraph poles. They were on sitting on the fence around the stadium. They were sitting on roofs of houses across the street, and they were sitting on the balcony, AI again here, of the Lowers Park Hotel that has been touched up. It looks like a really nice place with AI. So in any event, let's see. Yes, that's the Park Hotel. So here's the picture for you folks at home, and I hope you enjoy what you're going to see, and pour yourself something cold and enjoyable to you in the meanwhile. But that's what's in Dexter has brought in for us to see tonight, and thank you. Now, what did we owe this festival of baseball for? From what did this occasion arise? Baseball greatness. It was because of the work or fight rule. And you say, what was that? What was that? Okay. In 1917, on April 16th, life in these United States changed because we entered World War I, even though President Wilson said he won on the election in 1916, he kept us out of war. But then the Germans started shooting or torpedoing our ships, and so had to get in war. We declared war on Germany. The front page of the Reading Eagle declared seriously the war on Germany begins today, the Evening World, proclaiming a very stern headline. And the front page of the Reading Times, however, had owls and little cats. You folks don't have like X-ray eyes or whatever. The cartoon on the front page, it says, Little Miss Reading, up above what the bonnet with the stars and stripes and the guns sticking out. And it says, how do you like my 40 cent to Easter chapeau? This is Easter week. This came out. That's what the cute owl is saying about the hat. And the poem says, they could write poetry back in 1918, I'll tell you. In preparedness military, we are interested very, yet our thoughts to millinery sometimes skid. So while you were using your life in wild discussion of the hyphen, don't forget to buy your wife an Easter lid. There you go. And then the thing underneath, Easter preparedness. Join the parade. So now that motivated everybody, didn't it? So that was the Reading Times approach. Okay, worker fight. Maryland's governor, whose name is Emerson Harrington. I was looking him up, incidentally, and I came up, there's a guy named Harrington Emerson. So I'm reading about the wrong guy for about 2 minutes. I said, no, that's not the governor of Maryland. Anyways, I think both Emerson Harrington and Harrington Emerson would have both been preferred to be named Billy, but that's just a side thought. Okay, he was a protagonist of patriotism, and Maryland proclaimed an immediate law that if you did not have a job in a defense contracting industry that was necessary to the war effort, or you had not enlisted, then you were subject to the draft. Maryland advocated that. Delaware advocated it. And on the right, one's from the Washington Post, one's from the Baltimore Sun, and the one is from the Black Press in Wilmington that declared that African Americans were ready to join this effort as well. So that was the beginning of the phrase being used, and this got picked up by the Department of War, back when it was the Department of War, before it was Defense. Anyway, it's war again. Secretary of War Newton Baker adopted this on May 23rd, 1918. This was proclaimed by Congress to apply to as a federal requirement. And the general that was appointed to be in charge was Enoch Crowder, who was put in charge of the selective service system. Enoch Crowder had a talent for organization. Everybody in the Army knew him back when he was a nerdy lieutenant, and he rose like Radar O'Reilly through the ranks until he was put in charge of the selective service. And there he was. He was the guy that was doing the hatchet work for Secretary Baker's requirements. So the rule, I'll just read it quickly. On July 1st, any registrant who's found by a local draft board to be a habitual idler or not engaged in some useful occupation shall be summoned before the board and given a chance to explain, and in the absence of a satisfactory explanation, to be inducted into the military service of the United States. Be there or be square. All right. Well, the word of this spread everywhere. It spread in the Reading Eagle, spread in the New York Times, spread in the Marshalltown, Iowa paper, Calgary, Canada, Worker Fight, the Reading Times. And if you'll notice, so it's the word out. Oh no, Worker Fight. What does that mean? The Eagle subtly picked it up. The right side of it, it may affect ball players. Pretty astute observation, Reading Eagle. And so the New York Herald also had the same, and the New York Sun had the same. What about baseball? Will the Worker Fight take baseball players and make them play, or will they suspend baseball until the war is over? And then they showed the big stars and kind of speculated in the article about whether they'd play or not. And June 21st, a court issued an order that said baseball is not one of the occupations that's a necessary occupation. And the picture there has baseball is the heavyset fellow. And the thing hitting him in the back says Secretary Baker's order. And so this was something that was now something that had to be addressed because baseball players were going to be drafted. And of course, the baseball lords all went to Secretary Baker and said, let's give us some sort of, can we have some more time? Do something. Don't make us play. I mean, don't, can't we? She said, no, you're going to be eligible, but I'll give you till September 2nd, Labor Day. So you can finish your season Labor Day, which was earlier than they wanted. And then I'll give you 2 weeks for the World Series. All right. And so they took what they got. The Sporting News, the Bible of Baseball article on the lower left-hand corner says, well, the Magnets did the best they could to convince Baker. And what they did was they got some time. So, but in the meanwhile, players were getting notices. They had till originally July 1st, but they were getting notices already before July 1st saying, report to your center, report to your center. So the centers weren't like cooperating very well ahead of time. And now they thought, what am I going to do? We have till September 2nd, but my draft board is contacting me and saying, show up and you're going to be inducted. So in the meanwhile, the Bethlehem Steel Company, chairman of the board was Charles Schwab. And he found in 1917 that having a company soccer team and having company bowling teams and the like developed good morale. So he thought it would be a good thing for employees to have wholesome and good, wholesome games that will furnish amusement and will be entertainment for the employees. There you go. Why not baseball? So Bethlehem Steel had 6 main plants: Bethlehem, Lebanon, Wilmington, Fore River in Massachusetts, and Sparrows Point down in Maryland. And they formed the Bethlehem Steel League. And they began to recruit players for the Bethlehem Steel League who were players on the edge with their draft boards that didn't know what the heck they were going to do. Okay. Each team in the league, there were 6 teams to start with. They were going to be managed by a middle-level executive, and that person would monitor expenses and organize the team. And there was recruiters. One of the recruiters, connection with Reading here, Pop Kelchner, was the coach of basketball and football, or baseball, I'm sorry, baseball and football at Albright College. And he was hired by the Lebanon team to recruit and put a Lebanon team together. And from there, he went on to become a very successful baseball scout. Eddie Plank, who was 42 years old, but he was finished with his career with the Philadelphia A's that would put him in the Hall of Fame. He was 42. He was too old to be drafted anyway. But so he signed up with the league too. He was their first big name baseball player that they got. He said, well, I'll sign with the team in Harrisburg, the Skilton plant. It's only about 40 miles from my automotive business in Gettysburg. So Eddie Plank was a major signing there. Shoeless Joe Jackson was the first prominent baseball player to have an issue and to sign. His draft board in South Carolina was very aggressive. He had 2 brothers in the service already, serving overseas in the Army. And he had a wife and like 4 kids. And he thought, I'll be deferred. And his draft board said, not no more. Not with the work or fight rule. Get ready to serve, Joe. And so he went home and said to the missus, Isn't it nice when you call the lady the missus? But that's what they said back then. He went home and said to his wife, yeah, I guess I'll serve like my brothers. And she said, the hell you will. You're going to play baseball and you're going to go work for one of these defense contractors. And he went, oh, okay. Yes, Mom. Anyway, so he signed with Harlan and he became a ship painter. That's what he signed with. His manager on the Chicago White Sox was Pants Rowland, who eventually was an owner of the Reading Keys for a while. But Pants Rowland said, good luck, Joe. I understand. Now, some other newspapers, the Chicago Tribune says the Sox send him away with the best wishes. The Oakland paper says he quits the Sox for the shipyard. He's a slacker, a coward. Anyway, and the Philadelphia Inquirer published an editorial, Joe Jackson is not a slacker. So in any event, he made big news, and he was the first really prominent player to get signed. So joining Joe was Lefty Williams. He said, well, and another guy on the White Sox, Bird Lynn, goes and signs with Harlan as well. Bird Lynn was a catcher. Lefty Williams, of course, was the pitcher. And Happy Felsch was their center fielder. And when Charles Comiskey, the former player who was the owner of the White Sox, heard about that Felsch might go over, when Lynn and Williams left the team, he was so mad, he said, I want you to hand your uniforms in washed. So that means he meant business. Okay. So he expressed his distress. The government ought to get after baseball slackers like Williams, Lynn, and Joe Jackson. They should be put in the Army where they might rightfully belong. And in the meanwhile, the American League president, Ban Johnson, who was never accused of swallowing words, he starts out saying, yes, they're doing the right thing. The American League does not desire to impugn the motive of the players who have gone to the industrial work. Some of them are patriotic. And then his medication couldn't hold up. He had to say what he really wanted to. But if they are any of them who are Class A, I hope the Provost General Crowder yanks them from the shipyards and steelworks by the coat collar and places them in cantonment in preparing for future events on the Western Front. Yeah, that's what he say. What you really think, man? So, Work, Fight, or Play Ball is an excellent book that was written by a fellow from the Philadelphia area. And he was a writer down, I think, with the Daily News for years. But he has this great book. He spoke to my baseball group, and I missed that. But I bought the book, and I was very helpful in putting this together. Putting this together also involved reading a lot of newspaper articles where these people were quoted. But Actionberger wrote about how Shoeless Joe was probably the most vilified baseball player because he was the first. And the torrent of slacker and coward and whatever was rained on him pretty thoroughly. When all this came down, Babe Ruth and Rogers Hornsby, for their own reasons, played things a little lower key than what Joe Jackson had to. But Babe Ruth signs up with the Lebanon team in the Steel League, and Warren Hornsby signs with Harlan. Hornsby signs to work in the foundry. So he's got a real job, okay? Joe Jackson's painting ships. He's got a real job. Babe Ruth, he delivers blueprints. He's a blueprint deliverer, a courier, a blueprint courier. So he will go and bring you your blueprint, and then he will make sure the coffee in your office is not poisoned. Okay? So anyway, that's just a side, like, keep in mind, World War I's going to be over in a couple months, but there was Babe's situation is kind of a hyperbole, but there was a one-day strike in one of the shipyards protesting how a lot of these ball players had fairly soft jobs, and they were getting good money because they were not only getting paid to be the shipbuilder, they were getting money on the side to play baseball. Not nice work if you can get it. Just a real quick thing. So Babe signs with the Lebanon team. The paper says the Boston Red Sox are going to come the barnstorm here on Saturday. Well, it wasn't the Boston Red Sox. It was an exhibition team that first it was going to be Gymnasium's team. Gymnasium. It's like, that was the pen name of a fellow named Wolf, who wrote for the Philadelphia Evening Daily or Philadelphia Bulletin. He's a sports writer, and he did have a team of former Philadelphia A's that would barnstorm. But that's really good humor. Gymnasium. Like, okay. All right. But it was really Sherry McGee that has the team. Babe Ruth strikes out twice and walks. So they got to see him up close and personal and not do very well that day. Okay. In the meanwhile, you're saying, but what's going on? It's enough of Lebanon and stuff like that. What's going on? It's hard times for Reading baseball. No pro teams in Reading. We had pro teams most years since 1883. However, the most recent pro team was the Reading Pretzels in the New York Penn League. They lost $5,000 the year before in playing their season. They didn't have people coming to the game. The Reading Times pointed out that the team playing in Carsonia, amateurs, that was passing the hat, made $4,000. So they, rather than the profession, the team that charged admission. Anyway, the New York Penn League. So the Reading team, first the New York Penn League said, we don't want you. And then they said, well, we don't care. You don't want us. We're just continuing. We're losing money. We're closing down. So there's no Reading Pretzels anymore. Then there's no New York Penn League because all the other owners were having the same problem that the Pretzels were. So that league goes away. The headline you see there is a desperate cry. The International League is reorganizing at that point, and maybe Reading will have a team in it. And they have William Whitman. That's another story, but he's a baseball mogul that regularly would do things that fell on their face, like build a pagoda and then lose it in a foreclosure, or run for mayor 4 times unsuccessfully, and then, but any number of other things. He had baseball teams that would go bankrupt, so that wasn't a good thing. So what we got is no teams, no hope of any pro teams, but we do have 2 major ballparks. Lowers Park on the right, and that's been worked over by AI, the amazing AI, and the Circus Maximus, which was built by William Whitman for his baseball league that lasted a week and a half, and then he lost it in foreclosure when he went bankrupt. So, but we have these 2 very healthy ballparks. Lowers Park, interesting story with Lowers Park. 1911, it collapsed right between games of a doubleheader, the grandstands. It took 2 years to get it rebuilt. And in the meanwhile, the team that played there had to leave town because it was condemned. But it was getting rebuilt because they anticipated the United States Baseball League would move in there. Well, the United States Baseball League was William Whitman's league that lasted 2 weeks. Well, there was no team there. But they fixed Flowers Park, so that's good. The New York State League, as I said, went away. And there's no source of anybody that's going to be a Daddy Warbucks kind of person, a financier in Reading that's going to oomph up with money. The only guy that's making money in sports then was a fellow named, I think his name Dick Watson, who was a promoter. Price fighting was making a lot of money in Reading. But he didn't want anything to do with baseball. He wants his money from price fighting. New life. Okay. Mayor Edward Filbert of Reading says, we will have baseball. We'll have an industrial league. They will play Sunday. Our people need recreation, and so they will have it. And Harold's Furniture had a really good team, and they said, oh, we will fix Flowers Park up to make it nice. And they made it nice, and they had a doubleheader on Decoration Day. That's Memorial Day for those that don't know and now you know it. Anyway, so Decoration Day, they beat the Cressona team that came down, was a championship team. 2 games, everybody was pleased. It was a big crowd, and Mayor Filbert looked pretty good. And then things started bubbling. The Reading Steelies had the Kick Butt Moore brothers. J. Turner Moore was the president of the corporation, and he liked sports. And his brother, McCormick Moore, known as Mac Moore, was in charge of marketing and administration, and he took it upon himself. Mac Moore was going to organize the Steelies. Steelies at that point were just a very good recreation league team in the city. And they challenged at Flowers Park. They challenged the Harold's Furniture team, and they won. And the place was packed. It was packed. Everybody had a good time. 5-3, full house. But it was on Sunday. And so on Tuesday, Mayor Filbert, and you can see his grimace in the picture there. It was taken right after. A number of ministers from Reading came by and said, never on Sunday. Thou shalt keep the day of the Lord holy. So they said, this is not good, and we have blue laws in Pennsylvania. And Mayor Filbert said, yes, we do. Yes, we do. Let them play ball. The district attorney said, let them play ball. And so they played ball. There was an article in the Times a week or so later where the Times took a survey that people liked Sunday baseball. 10,000 people saw Sunday games in Berks County that day. 4,000 to 5,000 in Carsonia Park in amateur games, 1,500 at Flowers Park, another couple thousand at the Circus Maximus with some other recreational teams. So it was popular. So Mayor Filbert, he said, let them play ball. So all through June, the Steelies played with their regular, really good Steely team, but they didn't always win. There was a guy named Pud Hoff, and I dug all over to find a picture of Pud Hoff. But he, on the 9th, he's pitching for West Reading, and he holds the Steelies to 7-1. They win the game, the West Reading team, 7-1. And then the Steelies go, Hey, Pud, want to play for us? And so the next week, he's playing for the Steelies. And they go against Moton. And he lasts an inning. They pound the heck out of him. And so he's knocked off the mound. So the Pudhoff magic didn't work so good for the Steelies. So they've lost. They lose 2 games in a row. Oh, God forbid. But the losing streak ends with a rematch with Harold's Furniture. Place is packed. 2,500. That's packed. 2,500 attend the contest. The proceeds go to the Red Cross. That's the thing. These games, the companies were not getting the money. They were taking the money. They were paying expenses of people that had to work at the ballpark, but then they were giving the money to charities. They often gave it to the visiting team's pension plan, things like that, things that were not for profit of the corporation, things to benefit either charities or employee support organizations. So Harold suffers a shutout. Steelies win. And now take a good look at them, folks, because they ain't going to be around too much longer. These are the pre-ringer Steelies before they start bringing in the big league players, and they really pack the park. But see, their arms are folded. They just found out we're going to get replaced. No, it's a nice picture. It's on eBay for sale for $25, but this was AI from the Reading Eagle. How about that? All right. So Mac Moore rolls his sleeves back, or figuratively, and he says, we're going to get a new big leaguer every week. A new big leaguer every week, folks. That's what we're going to give you. So he signs Lefty Williams, he signs Burb Lynn, he signs George Dumont, who's a pitcher that's a veteran with the Washington Senators. And pay attention because he's going to be in a lot of things we'll talk about. Del Pratt, who escaped the St. Louis Browns for the New York Yankees. And they signed some other ones too. But he is very busy. And Rogers Hornsby, they say, Roger, we heard you're sweet on a girl around here. We'll take care of your honeymoon in the Berkshire Hotel if you sign with us. The newly formed Berkshire Hotel. All right, who here has had any honeymoons in the Berkshire Hotel? Let me tell you, it must have been an unspeakable experience. Anyway, so that's just the extent of recruiting comes to that. So George Dumont avenges the burning feeling of loss by he shuts out. He comes back his first game for the Steelies, and he comes, pitch for Washington, he shuts out Moton. Yay! All right, that's it. We're moving along. Lefty Williams wreaks revenge on Shillington, who had beat the Steelies too. 44,000 see him beat the Steelies, win for the Steelies 10-1. And note the asterisk: Shillington only has 1,000 people that live there. So everybody in Shillington must have been at the game. Where'd they get everybody else? So it was a very popular thing. Big crowd, July 7th. Another meeting, more ministers at the YMCA. There's a meeting to discuss Sunday baseball. How are we going to address this? What was decided at the meeting essentially was we'll talk about it. We'll kick it down the line, and we'll have a committee review it. But at the meeting, some people spoke up that were significant. Okay, here we go. First, Jay Turner Moore, not Mac Moore, Jay Turner, the brother that really runs the show at Reading Steelies. He spoke, and he says, my men are working from 10 to 12 hours a day. They work in the hottest and dirtiest place imaginable. Now, whose fault is that, Jay Turner? Okay. All right. Anyhow, but I digress. The men require recreation, and they're going to get it. And EJ Poole, whose operation was Cartech, wasn't as big as Reading Steel, but he said, I strongly favored baseball, Sunday baseball, at no charge. It's the men to come to work on Monday with clear heads who have been watching and playing Sunday baseball. I'll back Mr. Moore when he says that 80% of the citizens of Reading want Sunday baseball. Also speaking were several women that said, before there was baseball on Sunday and my husband could go down and watch it, he would go to a bar and come home drunk. And then he was drunk on work for Monday. We could hardly get him out of bed. A man from the War Department, whose name was not released, said, you know, before I came to Reading, I had never heard of a bawdy house, but they have them here, a lot of them. And that's where these players would be, these men would be if they weren't playing baseball on Sunday. So, where was he anyway? And I'm Catholic. It's an enterprising religion. Assistant pastor at St. Paul's, Reverend Lettenhorst, yes, said it's okay to play ball on Sunday. You can honor it's not violating the Lord's Day. And every game, when oftentimes there was a ceremony where there would be an award made to a charitable organization, and the reverend would be there and accept it for the church. So he was reciprocated. And then he gave gifts too. But not all clergy objected to Sunday baseball. Okay, on July 14th, Camp Crane comes and Shoeless Joe makes his debut. Capacity crowd. Once again, this is the biggest crowd we've ever had in history. And that's a different picture than Dex's picture. You all noticed that. But you can see the Deppen Brewery, I think, in the background there, right? It's still there. But Jackson hits a double, scores a run. It's the beginning of a run that the team has with Shoeless Joe playing for them. They just run over everybody. 2 games they lose in August, but in July, August, September, they basically, except for a couple of close games, they run over the opposition. Rogers Hornsby hits home runs. Shoeless Joe Jackson hits home runs. Lefty Williams hit home runs. Otto Wagner hits home runs. Otto Wagner kept being referred to as Major Leaguer Otto Wagner. He never got to the major leagues, but he had a good Berks County Dutch name. So anyway, anyhow, they really they were like 9-3 or 9-2 over that period of time. They were a dominant team, and everybody would go. They'd pack the house. They'd have a good time. They wouldn't go to a bawdy house. And oh yes, about September 29th. I digressed for the last 45 minutes. But now we're going to talk about the game's the thing. And it's before a crowd of 10,000, 12,000, or 15,000. If you believe Dex's picture, it says 15 on the picture. The Eagle said 12,000, 10,000. On the mound for Harlan that day is George Dumont. Didn't he just pitch for the Steelies, right? And for the Steelies that day was Lefty Williams, who's a little under the weather because he has something that they Spanish flu. He's just not feeling so good. It's fall of 1918, and we're just coming into Spanish flu. Okay, so we're going to talk about this. Innings 1 through 5. Dame leads off. Pratt's on base, and Shoeless Joe, home run, or no, he's a left-handed hitter. It's a home run, and 2-0. And guess what he gets? Since the third week of the season, I can't, otherwise electrically I get immolated. Jay, the boss man of Reading, Steele, first gave a $5 bill to anybody that hit a home run. And then that was so much fun, he started giving $10 bills to anybody who hit a home run. By the end of September, he's given a $20 bill to anybody that hits a home run. So Shoeless Joe gets a $20 bid for his home run. Okay, so they're leading. Then Harlan gets to Williams. They get 3 runs, two of which are driven in by a double by Dumont. Dumont hits a double that inning. And later on, he doubles in the 5th inning. And now it's 5-2 Harlan. And Lefty Williams is really under the weather. They bring in Babe Ruth from first base, who limps to the mound because he had gotten spiked in a game in Lebanon a couple days earlier, and he's going to pitch because he was a good pitcher. And then they move other people to different positions. In any event, it's now 5-2, and we're getting to the 7th inning, and that's where the drama is going to be here tonight. We have enough time. Who wants to reenact a triple play? Who wants to be part of reenacting a triple play? Oh, come on. Whoever is the pitcher gets to be Babe Ruth. Oh, come on. Owen, you want to be Babe Ruth? Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so here. Where's my bases? Oh, here they are. Okay. I came equipped for this occasion. These won't be used for much after tonight anyway, so we're using them as bases right now. Okay. The cast of thousands will be declared shortly. Hurry. Okay. All right. You're the pitcher. You get to be Babe Ruth. All right. George Dumont. Who wants to be George Dumont? Yeah, you just stay right here. You want to be George Dumont? Okay, you're on second base. All right. Jack Dressen, you get to be Jack Dressen. These are people from Holland who got home base. There's no outs. Okay, that's you get to be Cole, whose name is unknown, but you're up to that. Excellent. Here, you get to be Walt. No. You're first base. So here's the deal. You're up the bat. Mr. Cole here is going to try to bunt, but he is not. Oh, wait. You have to be longer. You're the star of the show. Okay. He's our third baseman. Okay. Now, you're going to throw me some heat. You're just going to throw me. And you will simulate that the bunt is going to be popped up. Cole doesn't put the bunt down very well. And all the havoc then follows, as we'll see. So toss me the ball, babe. Oh, haven't lost it. Okay. Simulate one. So no. Here. You're going to catch it in the air, Mr. Walker. Now you throw it over to Mr. Wall. So you're off the base. You're off the base. And you're off the base too. You're off the base, Mr. Now over to the second baseman. Triple play! But no. Out comes the manager for the Harlem. And out comes the umpire. He says, you're out. Triple play. So you've seen the thrill, the exhilaration of being part of the triple play. Thank you all. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Babe Ruth at a young age. Okay. Well, work on that for weeks. Okay. All right. Well, now they're still down. What do I do with that thing? Oh, here it is. Would have never finished. Seventh inning. You've watched the explosive top of the seventh inning, the bottom of the seventh. Because Harlan has lousy fielding, the Steelies get 3 runs, and it was ugly, but ugly is good when it gives you runs. So we'll just move on. All right. The climactic 10th. Do we want to reenact that? No, it's getting late. And it's not nearly. I saw these goosebumps going up here when you were watching that triple play being executed, particularly that toss from Walsh to Pratt. Rick, that was awesome. In any event, so yeah, we weren't going to do this. Shoeless Joe Jackson's up to bat. Pratt's on third base. You want to be Pratt again? You want to be Pratt? Yeah, you do. Go on third base. Yes. And I'm going to get to be Shoeless Joe Jackson. Who is Dumont? Oh, never mind. I'll be all of them. Shoeless Joe Jackson hits the ball. It's a ground ball. Dumont gets it, throws over to the first baseman, Dresden. Dresden farts around with it, messes around with it, and in the meanwhile, when he's trying to chase the ball back, what does Pratt do? Run home! Thank you. So there, game 1, Steelies win. Steelies 6, Harlan 5. Everybody goes home happy, which is the way it is in extra innings, particularly marital. Particularly my wife is happy when we go home after an extra. Anyway, so it was the crescendo of the 1918 season. It was the best teams and exciting game, big crowd. As I said, the crescendo. And it was also the last baseball game because starting the next week, all baseball games, everything, chess tournaments, dancing contests, everything was canceled because of the Spanish flu. I'm exaggerating a bit. Chess tournaments, you could still play over the phone. Anyway, the Liberty Parade was canceled, but the Spanish flu wreaked not quite the damage of World War I, but eventually on the population in general, it was thousands of people were killed. Postscript. Now we're to the postscripts. World War I, we won. 43 days after September 29th, after this game, is the armistice was signed. 43 days. That's less than 2 months. During that time, the Meuse-Argonne offense was launched by the U.S. and French joint operation, and it was a very successful offensive. Like the patient lived, or the operation was great. The patient died, but 26,000 American soldiers were lost in that, were killed in that offensive, which was a huge amount in relation to past war losses. But it expedited an end to the war. And according to William Eckenbarger, 24 million men had registered with the draft. 2.7 had been called up in the military, of whom 250 were active major leaguers. 112,000 of those who served would be killed, including 8 current or former major leaguers. So it had its toll, obviously. As soon as the war was over, everybody playing baseball in the Lebanon Valley, the Bethlehem Steel League said, I'm going back to my baseball team. It's fine. It was nice seeing, nice building the ships and stuff and delivering the blueprints, but I'm out of here. The Bethlehem Steel League disbands. They said, well, maybe we can still, no, we're not going to be able to make it. And now the Steelies, the Reading Steelworks, continue to have a team in the City League for a number of years, as long as they had a Steelworks until they got bought. And but they did not, even though Mac Moore was still their manager, they did not have they didn't have any more ex or future major leaguers playing for them. And so goodbye to the Steel League. And they even got beat by Ole, the Reading Steelworks. So it was quiet times. Babe Ruth, he became even more famous. Can you believe that? He gets sold to the Yankees 2 years later in one of the worst transactions, creating the curse of the Bambino in Boston. And he comes back to Reading in 1928 with Lou Gehrig in what was called the Buston Babes tour. Buston Plumbing they weren't like Buston the Fences, it was Buston Plumbing sponsored it. And Babe Ruth had they come to Reading, he had the police team, and Lou Gehrig had a bunch of minor leaguers. And they played at Lowers Park. 500 people were at the game. That's all, 500 were at the game. One of them was a guy named Bob Duddy, who I interviewed for 14 hours about the recreation. I did a great article. I thought it was great. He did too. But I didn't mention a word, nor did he, about this game when he was 10 years old at this game. And I never, until he was dead, I didn't know about that. Anyhow, but 2,000 people came to a free breakfast that was held before the game. So everybody wanted the free breakfast. Nobody went to the game. So that was that. And Babe went into the Hall of Fame. Rogers Hornsby also goes into the Hall of Fame, also comes back to Reading on a couple of occasions. And each time he comes back, once he comes back with the Cardinals and hits a home run. 7 years later, he's back with the Cubs and hits a home run. And there you go, Roger. He's in the Hall of Fame. Shoeless Joe Jackson and Lefty Williams, they also became famous for the wrong reasons. They were featured. Great film if you've ever seen 8 Men Out. It's a very close to historically true film about the Black Sox scandal. Great actors in it. So they're among the 8 Black Sox that are barred from baseball in 1920 because the involvement with gambling. They were acquitted in their trial, their judicial trial, but it reminds you that in American justice, acquittal doesn't mean you're innocent. You're just not as guilty as you might have been, so that the jury found it. And Kennesaw Mountain Landis said, who was the commissioner, you're guilty enough for me, you're out of baseball. So in any event, Eddie Plank was 7th in the league with batting average. The Joe Jackson won the Bethlehem Steel League batting title, hitting 393. In his games with Reading, he hit 596. So he hit this cover off the ball when he was here. Okay, Bird Lynn, real quick, the catcher from the White Sox. He plays in Reading for 5 years, and he is on the 1926 Reading Keys, which were the worst team in the history of the International League. And they were terrible. They went through three managers, one of whom was him, and then he left town like in the middle of the night to get out of it. But that was Bird Lynn. And Reading baseball. 1919, we get a team in the International League in Reading. They last for 13 years. Mac Moore served as the team president for a while. Then in 1932, because of gate problems, they moved to Albany, become the Albany Senators. Different teams come, the Red Sox, the Chicks, the Brooks, the Indians, the Red Sox, the Indians, and now the Reading Phillies are here. And we are privileged because they've been here for a long time. And anybody have any questions? Oh, and this is AI at its best. That picture up in the Times, it's a picture of the Times I gave with in July 14th. I AI'd that, and it turned it into that. It gave it life. It just caused me to say, wow, this might catch on somewhere. So anyway, and that's the picture I got off the internet of the scruffy looking Flowers Park got turned into that too. I got to thank Charlie Adams, who helped me out, and a guy named Mike Evans, who's a Facebook friend of mine, who also helped me out. So I appreciate that, much as I appreciate Dexter sharing that. Any questions? Yes. Uh-oh. How about that? But not at Lowers Park. I guess you've got to. Was a part of the what? Yeah, okay. Well, at least it didn't go into the corporate coffers. Okay, thank you. Yeah. That's what Albright Stadium is now. He built it at 13th and what Albright Stadium is, and it served as a baseball stadium for a few years. Then it was going to be condemned, and then somebody bought it and then gave it to Albright. And but that's from whence it cameth. Yeah. Or you just now you're gonna have to ask a question because I called. I just Sergius Maximus. Flowers Park's at 4th and Buttonwood, and the Sergius Maximus is up there. Oh yes, Owen. Could you? How did you die? You shot?
We could have a round of applause then.
Very much. It's been a pleasure.
Currently, the Berks History Center is doing a bathroom renovation. So the ladies' room, you have to go up the stairs, across the second floor to the back corner. But we now have a lock on the men's room, so you can commandeer the men's room and use that if you need it. So thank you very much for coming here tonight, and I hope to see you again at another program here at the Berks History Center. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is that your picture of the
Thank you.
of Flowers Park?
Oh, no.